This is my third Theros draft, at least the third one I'm recording. I did two before I started recording, which is quite a while ago. But this one is immediately after the second one you could have watched. So it's an 8-4 again, and there's a Shipbreaker Kraken as the rare. If I do not want to go blue, there's a Fanatic of Morgus, and there's a Voyager's End in blue as well. Now what am I going to take? At that point I still thought that the Kraken was just a bomb, even though a bit slow. And it kinda is. It's one of those cards which can decide a game just by themselves. Fanatic of Morgus is a really strong card. It goes not in really fewer decks, but then again it doesn't win on its own, even in those decks, while the Kraken, if I happen to have 8 mana, will usually just run away with the game. Still, at that point, I debated the Voyager's End, and in hindsight I should have taken the instant. The format is that fast, and Voyager's End is that good. Then again, taking End and passing the Kraken, maybe that would not have ended well. Second pack, Insatiable Harpy, is a very strong card, I know that. Griptide may be stronger, certainly easier to play since it's splashable, also goes well with my first pick. That's why I'm audibling from the Harpy to the Griptide here. I think it's correct, because Griptide does so much in that environment. Taking Griptide here is as correct as taking Voyager's End, the pick before would have been as well. So there's a Squireland, one of my high colors even. Death Barrow if I want to go a fast route, which doesn't go that well with my first two picks. There's a God's Willing. The same here. Although white-blue can be slow, red-blue shouldn't be slow, but white-blue can. Nesting Corsair isn't a bad card. Spearbrand Orient isn't that bad. At that point I'm thinking, what goes best with my Griptide and my Shipbreaker Kraken? And I think if I want the Kraken to have an impact, the best color to supplement it with is green. Maybe black, but there's no black in the pack, so this is why I will take Nesting Corsair here and try to go for a green-blue deck, some ramp, not too slow, that finishes with stuff like Shipbreaker Kraken. Still, if I had Voyager's End instead of the Kraken, I would have clearly been on my way towards blue-green tempo, which I think may just be superior. So what now? There's a Triad of Fates, which really doesn't go with my pick so far as all, and certainly isn't stronger than Shipbreaker Kraken, so no need to take that here. I like Leonin Snarecaster most of the cards in the pack, but once again does not go with my picks. Maybe with the Corsair if I get rid of blue, but why would I? And then there are Coastline Chimera and Staunch-Hearted Warrior is the name, and well, if I'm more towards high-end and not going heroic, then the Chimera is the better pick. So, Leafcrown Dryad. That's better than Feral Invocation, no doubt about that. Shipwreck Singer is interesting, but I believe Corsair plus Dryad is just better than the Singer. And I don't like that Singer that much. It's not a 2-drop. It's a late game card, and black-blue normally has enough of those. So here's another pick, and the Ordeal is the better card. But you need the right deck for it. Vaporkin is good in almost every deck that has blue. Even the most control-ish decks you should draft in Theros do like Vaporkin, because they have to win before their opponent does something outrageous, which they cannot stop. So with a heavy heart, since I hate passing an Ordeal in my colors, but looking at the cards I took so far, the Kraken, the Chimera, Griptide, all not that fast, I have to go for Vaporkin here. So what now? Fate into Antiquity is a nice sideboard card. Melodic Wall does not fit the deck, will not fit the deck even later, I suppose. Blue-green just doesn't lend itself towards a Melodic Wall. Deathbellow Raider, Minotaur Skull Reaver show that red is kind of open, but of course I take the green card. So, another Fate into Antiquity. Well, you can have 2 of those in the sideboard. It wouldn't be bad, but having a Gainsay instead makes for a better spread. And I have kinda settled in blue-green at that point. Still, I do not like Commune with the gods at that point. I don't have a Nemesis so far, and I prefer to play 2 drops instead of casting this one. So I'm thinking, is there a possibility that I will get pushed out of green? I have 2 strong cards in green, but I'm not missing much if I don't go for the Commune here. That's why I take the Phalanx just in case I find myself in blue-black later. Here I won't take Skull of Athreus. I'm not going to play it, and taking a green card makes sense. Fleet Feather Saddles is just not a card I pick up when I'm still busy signaling, so the Commune it is. Same goes for Guardians of Meletis. And here, Breaching Hippocamp is just worse than Enverward Raptor, which I believe is underrated. It's not a great card, but it's a solid card, and will quite often make my deck. So the only playable card by my standards is a Priest, so I hate it. Stymied Hopes is playable and is in blue, so I take it. And that wraps up the first booster round. There's no doubt that I'm going Symmetry here. Well, there's a small doubt. That's why I took the Phalanx, but I'm mentally prepared to hide it any moment. And then I see Abhorrent Overlord and start thinking again. There's also a Grey Merchant of Asphodel. But then again, there's a Griptide. And I think taking a Griptide for the color I will 100% play, and which is just excellent overall, is just better than taking the Overlord. Which would mean to abandon green and restructure my deck a bit. I mean, my blue kinda goes with blue-black. Also, the Overlord will not be that great without a heavy black base. It's still a strong card, but you have to wait for 7 mana, and then if you just attack twice or thrice with it before you have to sacrifice itself, that's not quite it. So I take Griptide instead, and I think that was right. Griptide and Voyage's End are still kinda underrated, I believe. And they're already quite high in demand, but they're just great. So at that point, I might have wanted to hide the Phalanx, but I'm still careful here. So what is this? Sealog Monster, it's kinda big. Sedge Scorpion, that's a good card. Sealog Monster is not a good card. Sealog Monster is a filler, which I will play, but don't have to. Lightning Strike, I'm not going into red. There's nothing making that happen. So in the end, it's a clear pick. Sedge Scorpion is a great card, and I always like to have a few when I'm in green. Then again, I cannot pass up Thassa's Emissary. It's a pity there's a Satyr in this deck, which I also like, and at that point my deck is kinda slow, at least that's what I think, and I would have liked to ramp, but the Emissary is just too good to pass up. Of course there was another Scorpion, but Emissary beats them all. Obviously I now can hide black. The deck's not that bad. The curve is a bit high so far, which happens quite a lot in this environment if you're not careful. But it could be worse. I have the Scorpion, I have 2 good 2-drops, I have a 3-drop. Now that's another close pick. Nemesis of Mortals is so big. Leafcorn Dryad is cheaper, more versatile, and Order of Fast is just a really strong card. In hindsight, the Nemesis might not have been the greatest pick here, but at that point I'm still thinking that I'm a kind of slow blue-green deck, which I should not have been. The Kraken has confused me a bit. It would have been better to forgo it and go for either the Ordeal or the Dryad. The Ordeal is actually the better card. Maybe one should take Leafcorn Dryad over Nemesis in general. I think that's actually a possibility. So there's Innocent Causer, which I would be very happy to take, but another Dryad I'm even more happy to take just when I need. Filling out my curve, giving me some early pressure, helping later, and there's no competition for Nessian Asp here. Stone Shrouded Warrior does not go with the deck. But my curve is still quite high. Farkas Menda, that's a great card. I don't think I will play Nadia's Presence, and if I play it, only because I have the Mendes, so it makes no sense to take it. And Null is a playable sideboard card, but I already have Fate into Antiquity, and I don't think Volpin Goleth stands a chance to ever make that deck. So what I'm doing is actually take the Menda as a hate pick, and as a maybe in the end, I will splash it, or at least sideboard it in as a splash. I don't think the other stuff is something I need. Fleet Feather Saddles, once again, is not something I need in green-blue. Well, there's Sealog Monster, and there's Aqueous Form. I don't think the form is that great outside of Heroic. It can win out of nowhere sometimes, but normally green-blue is more about quality, and the monster is just good in blue and blue matchups. Still, it's not a great pick. Now, Grey Merchant of Asphodel is remarkable, and Crusader just a little less, but that was a clear pick, the 2-drop. Mnemonic Wall still does not fit my deck. I'm not going to play the Centaurs. I already have so many expensive creatures, so I go for a second sideboard card. And now I'm really happy to see Scorpion come back. Another strong sideboard card. Now I could take the Amulet and think about Farkas Menda, but I don't think I have to mess up my mana base that way, so I take the sideboard card and I'm happy with it. And there's just another, which will probably never get played, since I already have 2 cards which are more reliable. So using the time when the last picks don't matter to hide a few cards which I do not intend to play in my main deck. I'm still a bit short on really strong playables, so this pack, it's a bit disappointing. There's nothing really great in my colors. There's a card I want to play, my deck wants, and I'll take it. It's the Prescient Chimera, of course. But that's not the kind of first pick I had hoped for. Still, it's really solid. And maybe I will not have to play the Sealog Monster. Another booster which is not exactly great for me. The Disciples, I don't think I need it. It's another 4-drop, and Time to Feed does something my deck at this point cannot do. And since I have quite big creatures, Time to Feed is the correct pick here. I'm happy to fill out the card with a creature which may become evasive in the late game. There's no real competition here. Fate and Antiquity really is too much at that point. Tassa's Bounty is nothing but play in that deck. There were strong red cards which I highlighted. Well, someone else will get those. So Trident Fortune Hunter is nice in a more heroic deck, but that's not what this deck needs. And I'm really happy to pick another Vaporkin here over Agent of Horizons. Now my deck has actually evolved into a blue-green tempo deck with the Kraken and the Sea Monster aren't that great. So in hindsight, instead of Nemesis, another Leaf Chondrite, or maybe the Blue Ordeal would have been great. Field Invocation is generally stronger than Savage Surge, although they're both good cards. And the blue-green tempo deck is finally coming together. Still, it's not perfect. There's a few cards which do not really fit that deck perfectly, although they're certainly playable, like Commune with the Gods and Sea Monster. Monarch Wall still doesn't do anything for me. Fate Foretold is a filler. Since it effectively cycles, I can use it. Chronicle of Heroes is strong for other drafters, as is the Pegasus. Flaming Wheel is still practically unplayable, so Fate Foretold it is. And there's another Corsair, which is great. Really helping with my deck's curve. So I hide stuff which will not make the cut. Diamond Hopes is good because your opponent taps out a lot, but is bad because you tap out a lot too, so it's not a card I would run main deck normally. So the Hippocamp might find a place, might get to ambush something like a Crown Crusader. So I'm thinking Guardians of Militis or Triton Shorthy for the sideboard. Or maybe a hate pick, and I go with a hate pick of Chronicle. Maybe I should have taken the Shorthy here if I run into a really fast deck. But no. Maybe hating the Chronicler is better. Triton Shorthy if I do not want to use it actively, and normally you don't, because you rarely get a blue deck that fast. Is not a card you would really want for your deck. So I don't need another Stymied Hopes, so I hate the Sentry, not that someone gets to take it as a really late pick. So another opportunity to take a Shard Thief. A Presence I don't need. Sandals I probably don't need. Demolish I could hate. I go with the Sandals, which I might side in. Well, Portrait of Betrayal can hurt, so I hate that. No reason at all to take the Presence and defend the Hearth you don't want. Lost in the Labyrinth is actually not that bad in that environment, because sometimes there is a race and sometimes creatures block in that race, and it can become kind of a giant goth with Scry. It's not great, but it's usable. So that was it. I'm not short on playables, but I'm not perfectly set up with a few cards which are okay, but don't go with my strategy as well as I like it. So those are the 23 cards I tended to play at that time. When I get to deck building, I will make one small change. You'll see it soon. But first I lay out my curve. Whenever you see a video draft by a player, and when he gets to deck building, he does not lay out his creatures in a curve as the first thing he does. You should be kind of wary, because this is kind of an indication that this player is not thinking enough in tempo terms and more in good card terms. You know, when they first pull out all the cards they want to play without looking at the curve, and then build the curve later. I don't think that's the right way to do it. So those two creatures I put aside because I don't really like them that much, especially not in that deck. They're both usable, no doubt about that, but I'm looking for alternatives here. So what goes in? Obviously both Cryptides. Time to feed, of course. Fern Invocation, certainly. So that's 23 cards, 2 of which are doubtful. And now I'm looking into cards I could main deck. Stymied Hopes, Fate Foretold, Artisan Sorrow, Commune with the Gods. Those are all candidates. None of them are really great. And then I realized I overlooked a card any moment now. So one thing is clear, Monster is better than Hippocamp, and I will play one non-creature spell, probably, because I really don't need the Hippocamp that much. Fate Foretold was what I planned to play, but I don't like it in that deck. It doesn't do anything, really. So I'm looking for a card which might help me. Commune with the Gods, not really, even though I have one Nemesis of Mortals. But I don't think I have those 2 mana to spare. Stymied Hopes is the first thing I think about. Artisan Sorrow main decking, not that bad, but at the same time, in a tempo deck, it might be a dirt card, and even later it might be just expensive, even though Square 2 is nice. And in the meanwhile, I found Lost in the Labyrinth, and looking at my curve, I think, well, that's actually quite a useful card. So 2 cards to take out. What will those be? Artisan Sorrow, and then I think Sealock Monster or Stymied Hopes. And well, Green-Blue is a deck which can get into the late game, even if it doesn't plan to do so. And then having a few monstrous creatures is nice. So this is my 4th monstrous creature. And I go with a monster. I also have a few flyers. So gumming up the ground is not the worst idea. These are the 23 cards I will run. Now for lands. Magic Online suggests 9 islands, 8 forests. But it's better the other way around, because my early drops are mostly green. I have no idea how that happened. Some kind of double clicking with my mouse, I guess. Those are way too many forests and way too many islands. I'm still having trouble with the interface at that point, trying to get those forests out of my deck. But I'd end up with 9 islands and 8 forests. No, the other way around. 9 forests and 8 islands. Which I believe is perfect. And I think I built the deck correctly. There's another island. And that's the deck. Very heavy on creatures. Quite light on spells. But that's okay. Means I have a better chance to hit my curve. Okay. So let's go to the first round.